Hello, happy Monday. How is it going out there? Apologies, I'm a few minutes late. Um, this kind of actually really nicely ties in with what I'm going to be speaking about today in the mindset piece of this live. So I was out on my walk, and I unfortunately encountered a rabbit a rabbit's head. We have coyotes in our neighborhood and we have rabbits in our neighborhood. We also have a lot of cats in our neighborhood. And, unfortunately, this rabbit obviously got into the crosshairs of a coyote or some kind of wild animal. And as I was walking, all that I saw was this poor rabbit's head. So I decided that I could just ignore it, but I decided that I would just walk home and get a shovel. And there's a park in our neighborhood that has some really tall trees. And instead of leaving this poor rabbit's head on the sidewalk, which is where I found it, I would just give it a proper burial as any animal deserves. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of disappointing because it's the middle of the day. So obviously a lot of people walked by this rabbit's head in this neighborhood and nobody decided to, put it in a better spot than in the middle of the sidewalk. So, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because it is really, really important that we look around in this world and we do our best to do good for others, even when there is nothing for us to gain by doing that act of kindness. And this will tie in very nicely to the second part of my video where I'm going to be speaking about mindset. So if you're new to my channel, to my page, that is a total aside from what I normally talk about. I'm Julie with Balanced Life with Julie. I'm a regenerative health practitioner and a holistic nutritionist, and I am absolutely passionate about holistic health, mindset, well-being, and really living a life where you get to prosper in all levels, like with your health, with your mindset, in your relationships, in your finances. You deserve it all, right? We're all a part of this wellspring of abundance that is available to us. But in order for it to really open up, we have to be willing participants and open to the messages that the universe is sending us. So what I would like to start off with is I'm going to do part 2 of gut health. I spoke about gut health last week. So if you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch that video where I speak about all of the things that damage gut health. And then this past Friday, I'm going to run my hydrogen bottle. And I feel like I need a little something, a little, I don't know, energy cycle would do it. So I'm going to run some energy frequencies in my bottle. So so I did a part 1 where I spoke about all the ways that gut health is damaged. And then this past Friday, I shared a video of Dr. Zach Bush speaking about how when you do go through multiple rounds of antibiotics, that it does have a profound impact on your gut health and a lasting impact. And I think that a lot of people are unaware of that impact. And I know I personally, all the times in my life that I have been placed on antibiotics for one reason or another, I was never warned about the side effects and the long-lasting implications for health. And I'm not saying you should never take antibiotics. I'm not saying that you should never take medications. What I am saying is that it is very, very important to understand the side effects and to make an informed decision. So for example, this past fall, I had all of my mercury fillings removed. And instead of using pharmaceuticals, I used a couple of my biohacks. I used molecular hydrogen, I used redox, I used nano to prevent infection. I used the zeolites that I work with as well to prevent infection and to move the mercury out of my system. And I continue to do that to detox my system. So it's really, really important to know about what the options are, what the alternatives are, and before you just go through rounds of antibiotics. And just to kind of highlight and illustrate my point, I have a client in my neighborhood. I don't work with a lot of local clients, but she is a client and she's well into her, I want to say late 70s, early 80s. And every single time she has some kind of an infection, her doctor puts her on antibiotics and her gut health takes a complete slide backwards. And then she gets sick. And this is a pattern that keeps repeating. And so usually I will do my best to try to get her back on track. I work with redox quite a bit. So that's the only thing she's willing to try at this point. I mean, I have other tools that she could utilize, but unfortunately, sometimes when people are a little bit older, they can be a little bit not open to all of the methods and the modalities that are available to them. So I feel like I'm going to have a sneeze coming on. Just give me one sec. Okay. So when it comes to gut health, right, there's a few things that are really, really foundational to keep in mind. Okay. The microbes in your gut, the hundreds and hundreds of different varieties of microbes in your gut, they thrive on plant foods. They thrive on fiber. So if you have a diet that is lacking in fiber, it is going to severely compromise your gut health, like severely. And then if you have a diet where you're consuming a lot of processed sugars, processed foods, tons of meat and dairy, that's also going to impact your gut in a negative way. And then if you add to that, you are taking pharmaceuticals on a regular basis for whatever health condition you might be dealing with, or you're doing rounds of antibiotics for whatever else might be going on with your body, that is also damaging for your gut health, right? As are the chemicals and the pesticides and the herbicides and glyphosate, all of these things, and alcohol and caffeine, which is highly acidic. Now, unfortunately, we have a society that knows nothing about how the human body works, and they just shovel whatever they want into their mouth, and they have been incorrectly taught that it doesn't matter, that the body can just deal with it, the body can just handle it. And that is categorically not true. It's not true. If you have a highly processed diet, and you're not feeding the microorganisms in your gut, you are compromising your immune system, you're compromising your mood, because 90% of the serotonin in your body is in your gut, 40% of the dopamine in your body is in your gut. It's not in your brain, it's in your gut. So when you start damaging your gut health, of course your mood is going to be impacted. 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And so when you do not take care of your gut health, it has this ripple effect into other things in your body. And I'm pretty sure I spoke about leaky gut last week. Sorry, I'm wearing socks and I get the west facing sun in the afternoon. So it's getting a little warm in this office. So when you're dealing with leaky gut, which is when the perforations of your gut start to come apart, the tight junctions, and what is supposed to stay in your gut starts to leak into the rest of your body, that's when we start to see autoimmune conditions developing within people. So all this stuff is not random. It's understanding. It really is understanding how your body works and supporting actual health within your body. It's really so simple. It really is. And I say this as somebody who dealt with a lot of gut issues, especially when I was dealing with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. I had terrible gut health. I was always bloated. I was always gassy. It was super embarrassing. And I didn't understand what was going on. And it was because of what I was putting in my body. and that I wasn't really addressing the negative side effects of being on multiple courses of antibiotics over the course of my life. So, to that point, the video that I shared on Instagram, what Dr. Zach Bush has said and shares on, I've seen him share it multiple times on different podcasts over the years, is that there is a 24% increase over a period of 12 months in the risk of depression for women, and I'm sure for men as well, because this has to do with dopamine and serotonin. There's a 24% increase in the risk of depression over a period of 24 months if someone has one round of antibiotics. If for some reason you're doing 2 rounds of antibiotics, maybe you got some kind of an infection and it didn't work, and now you're on some other type of antibiotic, there's a 54% increase in the risk of depression. But the other thing to keep in mind is that there is long-term damage to the gut. Antibiotics do not discriminate. They don't just go after the bad pathogens. They go after everything. And so what happens is your entire gut microbiome becomes compromised and it is affected. And so what that means is, remember that 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in your gut. 40% of the dopamine in your body is made in your gut. So now if the microbes within your gut are not able to do what they're supposed to do, then your mood is going to be impacted. And I've personally experienced this. Like, I used to go through bouts of depression like clockwork, um, you know, over periods in my early 20s. Then, of course, after my husband passed away, I went through a lot of depression and anxiety. But if I think back to when the last time I had a round of antibiotics was back in 2013. I haven't had any type of antibiotics since then, but I dealt with depression and anxiety ongoing after my diagnosis with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So all the way from 2014 to about, I would say, late 2019. And that was in summer of 2019 was when I got on the protocol that helped me to reverse hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's and finally get off my medication. Interestingly, I haven't had any depression since then. And I've been off the meds now for 5 years, right? January 2025 is 5 years since I was last on medication for anything. And so that goes to show that the work absolutely works. So what have I done in those 5 years? What was I doing on that protocol in 2019? I was improving the quality of my diet. I was working on my gut health, working on repairing the tight junctions of my gut, because I finally realized that the hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's was absolutely connected to gut. So I started addressing that. All health conditions are rooted in gut issues. So you have to address the gut. So I started addressing my gut health. I started addressing parasites and heavy metals. And lo and behold, I got better. And of course, since then, I've dug in deeper and continued to research. But if I think back to what is the biggest leap that I've made in my health, the quantum leap, it was that protocol that I started in July, August of 2019. 6 months later, I was off the meds, and I haven't been on the meds ever since. Interestingly, all my gut issues are also gone, right? So it really is about doing the correct thing and continuing to do the correct thing time after time after time after time. Now, how this relates to gut health is that, you just want to be aware, be aware of how, when you're taking a round of antibiotics, what the possible side effects are, how it's going to impact other systems within your body so that you can make an informed decision. There might be a holistic approach that could potentially help you. Now, of course, if you're someone who's dealing with something very, very extreme like sepsis, that might not be an option at that time. But for a lot of things, it could be an option to do the more holistic route. And what ends up happening is then you don't have damage to your gut and you don't have to worry about trying to repopulate your gut flora. Now, if you do go through a round of antibiotics, it is really, really important to do some of the things that I suggested in last week's video, which is start to eat a wider variety of plant foods. The guideline that I've heard multiple times from different practitioners in this area is you want to aim for about 30 different types of varieties of plant foods. So we're talking fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, sprouts. And what those different plant fibers do is they help feed different types of microbes within your body. We are more microbe than we are human. So to neglect the health of our gut microbiome is to really do a huge disservice to our health, right? So that's number one. Number two is you could add in some fermented foods. I personally am not a fan of kombucha. I used to be a big kombucha drinker just because a lot of the bacteria that is fed is utilized in kombucha. They're fed sugar. So that's not really what you want to be populating within your gut, like microbes that desire sugar. Ideally, you would want to be, maybe kimchi would be a better option for sure. That's something that I steer to for that kind of thing. I don't really turn to probiotics just because there are not that many probiotics that are out there that have a good variety of strains within them. And the reason that is really, really important is because your gut microbiome, and I spoke about this a lot last week, so please go back and watch that video, but your microbiome is made up of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different varieties of microbes. And so if you get a probiotic that has like 10 different strains, that doesn't even touch the biodiversity that is within your gut. And that's why it's really best to use food as medicine first. And getting out in nature is really, really important, especially if you're amongst the trees, because the microbes, yes, there are microbes out there everywhere. Those microbes are going to also impact the microbes within your gut. So those are some of the ways that you can start to get your gut health back on track. And of course, last week, I also talked about the importance of making sure that you're going to bed somewhere between 9 and 10 and that you're on a proper circadian rhythm, because our gut health is also tied to the 24-hour clock. We are nature, right? I mean, despite the fact that I'm sitting indoors and most of us, like I'm in a cold climate, so most of us that are in cold climates or really, really hot climates, we're probably going to tend to be more indoors. But I make a point of getting outside in nature every single day. Every day. It's a non-negotiable. Even on the coldest days, I just gear up and I get outside because I know how beneficial it is for my gut microbiome. I know how beneficial it is for my circulatory system, for like my muscles, for my lymph system, for every single system in the body benefits from time outdoors. And really, walking is one of the best things you could do for your body. At least 30 minutes a day. Like, you're going to feel profoundly different in your body. And for anyone who who struggles with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's like I did, it really is like, get away from the HIIT workouts, start doing yoga, start doing weights, start walking, and you're going to feel a shift in your body. And then also change how you nourish yourself. Get away from the inflammatory foods. I'll do another video on that another time. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover in gut health, because I kind of felt like incomplete. I mean, ideally, what I'd love to do is like have a slide presentation and just, all this That's usually what I love to do, but don't get that opportunity on YouTube because YouTube's not set up that way for me to, share slides and stuff. Not that I know of. Maybe there is. And then the final thing that I want to say is that a lot of most people give a lot of reverence to the brain, right? The brain's in charge. The brain's in charge. No, it isn't. Oh, via Zoom. Lori just said, "Oh, you can via Zoom." Well, I have to figure out how to do that because I don't know how to do that. Anyway, so a lot of people give a lot of reverence to the brain, right? The brain is in charge. Absolutely not. Your gut is in charge. There are 10 signals that go from your gut to your brain, and only one signal that goes from your brain down to your gut. So when you damage your gut health, it also affects that communication, that pathway. And this is why taking care of your gut health is probably the best thing that you're going to do for your overall health and well-being. Hang on. One of my dogs is. Are you good there? She's hyperventilating. I don't know what she's doing. She's breathing weird. She's fine. She does this weird thing where it's all good. It's all good. She's fine. She's quiet now. This is why gut health is so important. And it's not about just taking a probiotic. You got to go a lot deeper than that. You must change your diet. I will quote the incomparable Dr. Alan Goldhammer from True North, who always says, health comes from health promoting habits. Simple as that. Simple. Now you just got to do it. Be like Nike. Just do it. All right. Second part. I hinted at this last week, and then I thought, you know what? I'm gonna take off my map of consciousness and have a visual for you. And interestingly, under the map of consciousness, I also had this whole food chart. When I do in-person talks and stuff, I talk about the frequency of food and food as energy and frequency and how important that is, right? So the other thing to keep in mind, if you're consuming a lot of processed foods or a lot of dead foods, energetically dead foods or literally dead foods, is that it lowers the vibration and frequency within your body. And you're not going to have the energy, the motivation, or the thought to elevate your consciousness. And we are spiritual beings having a human experience. For whatever reason, your soul has decided to incarnate at this time on this planet for its own evolution. And this human suit that we get to wear is our tool for doing so. And that when you recognize that and really start to live your life from a more spiritual perspective, everything in your life will get better. It will. So the reason that I shared the map of consciousness is this is David R. Hawkins' work. He passed away, I think, in 2011 or could have been 2012. But he was a psychologist. He has a few books out there. Power versus Force. It's a dense read, but that's something that I definitely recommend that you go look up and listen to or read. It is definitely worth reading. But what he noticed over the course of his life was just patterns, right? I mean, it's the same thing that I notice working with people. Patterns. You start to see patterns, and you start to see how things are playing out physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? So there's his map of consciousness basically divides up the human experience into different paradigms, right? And most people are stuck pride and below. They're in the survival paradigm. They tell stories and they're, trapped in these cycles, stories of anger, of desire, of fear, of grief, of apathy, right? And oh, I got a thumbs up. Cool. So when you stay in this survival paradigm, life is hard. It's really hard. When you start to get into the second one, which happens at courage. Courage is all about recognizing that you have agency in your life, no matter what your circumstances. And then from there, you just work up, right? Willingness. I mean, to me, one of the most smart things that anyone can do is take radical responsibility for their life, and having the courage and the acceptance and the desire to clean up your side of the street. And then the top is the spiritual. This is when we walk and we move in love and peace and gratitude and all of that. And it doesn't mean that life is perfect all the time or that there aren't any challenges. It just means that when the challenges show up, you look at it from a spiritual perspective. And I'll share a couple of stories just to kind of help highlight this. So one of the worst things in my life that has ever happened to me at this point, and I have no doubt that there will be other tests, because as long as I'm human on this planet, it is about my spiritual evolution and growth, and challenges are one of the ways that we evolve ourselves. So the most tragic thing that has ever happened in my life was the death of my husband. Not expected, out of the blue, and I was completely devastated. While I was going through that period, I kept asking God, universe, angels, whatever you believe in, I kept asking this question: how is this helping me? And I did it with tears streaming down my face, stuff coming out of my nose, ugly crying, curled up in a ball on my kitchen floor. I still pose that question: how is this helping me? Because I understood that this was some kind of divine lesson, and I needed to be open to receive the lesson. I could have cursed the gods, stayed angry, stayed in a state of grief, right? Stayed in these lower states. I could have done all that. And you see people that do that their entire life. They're always in these lower vibration states. And it's interesting because as I've worked on myself, as I've continued to grow and educate myself, and do all of these practices that I suggest people do, if I had some of these tools sooner on my journey, I would have spent less time in a state of grief. I could have saved myself unnecessary suffering. And that would have meant that I would have been in a position to help people much sooner than I did, because I spent way too much time feeling sorry for myself. I was oscillating between this, like, I know this is for my highest good, but wow, this really sucks. Like, this is not fair. And I had to finally just let it go and accept and move on and grieve and have the desire, the actual desire to improve myself and improve my life. Now, of course, the other part of this story is about just about a year and a half after he passed away, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So that was the next challenge that life presented me, was this illness. And as someone who had never really been sick before, it was devastating. Like, I went from somebody who worked out 5-6 days a week and felt great in my body to someone who couldn't get out of bed and stand up straight. It was humbling. And I could have just stayed on the meds for the rest of my life and just been like, well, I guess this is life. This is my life now. And there are people who get stuck in that story too. But I knew in my soul, I knew that the body can heal itself. And I decided, number one, I wanted to find out, was there any way that my husband's death could have been prevented? And that's part of why I'm I went and went back to school and got all my certifications and continue to study and continue to evolve. And I know that the answer is yes, but that answer isn't going to bring him back. So all I can do is share this message forward for those who are ready to receive it. And not everybody's ready to receive it because many are very, very much plugged into the allopathic paradigm. And that's their life's journey, right? So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was I wanted to figure out how to reverse hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. And it took me 6 long years, but I definitely cracked the code on that. And I know that I cracked the code because I've worked with other clients who have gotten better and, been able to reduce or completely get off medication and get their life back. And that to me is worth it. If I can help one person with this information, all of my suffering was worth it, all of it. And I do not have a hatred in my heart for any bad thing that has happened in my life. And there have been many other bad things that have happened, right? I know that because I live my life from a spiritual paradigm. That's how I do my days. 100%. And even when something happens that upsets me, I just take a pause and I go, how is this helpful? What do I need to shift within myself? Not the government needs to do this and that person needs to do this and this other situation out there has to change in order for me to be happy. What do I have to shift within myself to accept this situation, to maybe, change it if necessary, take responsibility if I messed up, and how can I be better as a result? The game is between you and you. It's not between you and the world. It's between you and you. So when you figure that out and you really take on radical personal responsibility for the state of your health, for what you say, for how you show up, for what you take responsibility for, then your life changes. That doesn't mean, and I do want to paraphrase, I do want to highlight this. That doesn't mean if you've gone through abuse that it makes the abuse okay. I've gone through abuse as well, and I don't talk about it a lot. It doesn't mean that I'm okay with what happened, but I forgive what took place because I don't want the burden of carrying hatred or guilt or shame or any of that negativity in my heart because I know it's not helping me. Everything is energy and frequency and vibration. So if I'm putting hate out there, what am I going to get? More hate, right? But if I put out love and gratitude and peace and joy, that's what I get back. It is an energy universe. And the way that I'm going to tie it into the other part of what I do, which is most people come to me for health stuff. The way that this connects with health is that when we start putting high vibration foods into our body, when we start to raise our vibration through how we're nourishing our cells and tissues, then it becomes a lot easier to be in a state of gratitude, to be in a state of forgiveness, to just notice the beautiful world that we are a part of, you know? But when you're eating stuff that literally makes you feel like crap, it's hard to get there. You can't think your way there. You have to feel with your heart. You have to feel your way there. And when you do, I promise you, your life will change because these are the principles that I've practiced for over 10 years now. And my only regret with all of this information is that I was a dabbler before this. Like I would learn something and then I would kind of apply it, but not really apply it. And My hair is driving me just a little bananas today. I mean, I would apply it, but not really apply it. And my husband's death was a massive wake-up call for me in all the ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It has forced me to become a better human being in so many ways. I do not recognize that woman that was a earlier version of me. I don't fault her for the decisions that she made and the missteps that she made, but I am beyond grateful that I was given the opportunity to raise my levels and to raise my game, because this is what allows me to step into being of true service to others. And that really is what life is about. It's about evolving yourself and showing up and figuring out how you can help others, how you can be of service. And that doesn't mean necessarily helping millions and millions and millions of people, which is my vision, but maybe it's just being kinder to your neighbor. Maybe it's helping somebody when you see them in distress. Maybe it's just one little thing, but it has profound impact. And I'll tie it back to gut health, which is when we do kindness upon others, our serotonin levels rise. The serotonin levels of the person we help, their serotonin levels also rise, but so do yours. And if someone watches you perform that act of kindness, they're also energetically tied because they witnessed it, and their serotonin levels rise. So do you see how everything is connected? Nothing is isolated. All right. This has been a way longer live than I thought it was going to be, but the downloads were coming, and so there we go. It is what it is. Thanks, Lori, for hanging with me. So if you're watching this video, if you got it all the way to the end and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. I do lives every single Monday. There's content that comes out every single week. And it is my pure passion and mission to put this information out into the world, because I do believe in my heart that more people need to empower themselves with this information and take control of their health, their well-being, their consciousness in all the ways. And we're not alone. We're in this massive interconnected universe. And this is like the download that came to me early this morning. Albert Einstein always said the most powerful decision that we can make is whether we live in a hostile or friendly universe. I choose we live in a friendly universe. What are you choosing? What are you choosing? So if you want to work with me, if you are dealing with any health issues and you want to dive deeper, I do have an amazing membership. We do live weekly calls every single Friday to answer your questions. I have also all kinds of other goodies as well. So make sure that you check the caption below the video. If you're not already following and subscribe, please subscribe. Share this video with anyone you think this could help. Maybe this is the gift that they need today. And I want to thank you for being here live with me. Amazing. And anyone watching the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. I do appreciate you. And I will see you next week for next week's live. Peace. Enjoy the day. Bye for now.